Good afternoon, students. I am Ms. Justina Namupala. I am your BESP English 3 tutor. Welcome to English 3. I wish you all to be hardworking, dedicated, and self-determined students in this course. This presentation covers the subject content in brief and some general guidelines that I want everyone to keep in mind when preparing for the 2020 examinations. I will discuss some of the content of your study guide in order to help you prepare for the coming exams. By now, you should have a good idea what the subject is about, as you have completed an assignment. Please pay attention to the comments written in the assignments. They will also help you a lot. Also, please note that I cannot give attention to the whole content, so should you have any questions, please contact me for help. Use the study guide to prepare for the examination. Before we start, please pay attention to verbs, the introductory verbs. For example, discuss, list, define, Please pay attention to the introductory verbs in the questions. For example, discuss, list, define, describe, argue, compare, and contrast. These verbs will enable you to understand what the question is asking you. Pay attention to the exit learning outcomes in the index of the study guide. Pay attention to the learning outcomes of every unit of the study guide. This will make you aware of what you are supposed to be familiar with from the study guide and the whole course at large. This is what I want you to look at when you are preparing for your 2020 examination. Both exams of April, August, and November. Please note that the presentation does not specify for which exam, but it's for both 3 exams in April, August, and November. In Unit 1, you should be able to know the punctuation marks. You should know how to use the punctuation marks. For example, you should be able to punctuate a paragraph that is unpunctuated. You should know how to explain when and where to use any specific punctuation mark, for example, such as a full stop, a comma, an apostrophe, a question mark, the ellipses or brackets. You should be able to explain each of them, when and where we use them, and also use examples of your own. Number 2, we have capital letters. Please study how to use capital letters and when and where we use them. For example, that we use them at the beginning of a sentence, or that we use capital letters with names of people or with proper nouns, names of places. You should also know how to use the apostrophe, which is very important. You should be able to explain to learners how and where to use the apostrophe. In Unit 2, please study antonyms. Explain and teach antonyms to your class groups. Explain and teach adjectives to learners. You should be able to give relevant examples of your own. Also, you will be asked to plan a lesson plan teaching synonyms to a certain class group. So it is very much important that you go through antonyms, adjectives, and synonyms. Later on during the presentation, we'll look at how to write a lesson plan. In Unit 3, you should look at the following. You should look at the features of an effective paragraph. For example, a paragraph has 3 sections: an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. You should be able to outline features of an introduction. What do we write in an introduction specifically? What are the effective features of what to write in the body of a paragraph? What are we supposed to write in a conclusion? You should be able to outline that in the introduction we introduce what we are supposed to write about, and that in the body we explain further on whatever it is that you are writing about, and that the conclusion is a summary of what you have already written in the body paragraphs. Number 2, explain the 5 steps of the writing process. You should be able to explain under each step. For example, step 1, which is pre-writing, what should one do in this process? In step 2, the drafting process, what are you supposed to do in the drafting process? Step 3, the revising one, what are you going to write, or what are you doing in the revising process? Step 4, which is proofreading and editing, what do you do in this section? And step 5, which is publishing, you should also explain what the writer should do in step 5. In other words, you give guidelines of what should be done under each step from step 1 up to 5. Unit 4. In Unit 4, this is what you are going to look at. You are going to look at essay writing, specifically narrative. Please study all the different types of essays as they appear in the study guide. This will enable you to understand, if you are given a topic, which type of essay you are supposed to write. If it is narrative, it means that you have to narrate a certain story. If it's descriptive, it means you have to describe, giving a description of maybe your favorite car. And that if it's an argumentative essay, you have to argue for a certain topic. Now, in one of the exams, you are going to be asked to write an essay, narrative one. how do we write an essay? We write an essay with the following format. Your essay must have a title or a topic. Your essay cannot be written without a topic. Your topic should be underlined if it's written in small letters. However, if it's written in block capitals, which is capital letters, it should not be underlined. After you have written the topic of your essay, you skip a line. When you skip a line, then you write your introduction. Your introduction should not be more than 5 lines. It should be from 3 to 4 lines. However, your introduction cannot be 2 lines either. So, from 3 to 4 lines is your introduction, because your introduction is only an introduction to what you are writing about. Please take note that an introduction is only within 3 to 4 lines. Do not exceed more than that. And then after your introduction, you skip a line and then you write your body paragraphs. Now, many people have a problem when they write the body of an essay. Please take note that the body of an essay is not one long paragraph. It is not one long paragraph. The body must be divided into different paragraphs. What do I mean by this? Your body should be 3 to 4 paragraphs according to the word limit. If you have a word limit of 200 words, it will determine whether your body paragraphs will be 3 or 4 or 5. If you have 500 words, it will determine the number of body paragraphs your essay will have. Please take note of the word limit before you start writing. Like I said before, the body is not one paragraph. The length of your paragraphs must be the same. What do I mean by this? I mean that if your paragraphs are within 5 lines, all your paragraphs must be within 5 lines. You cannot write the first paragraph is within 4 lines, the next paragraph is within 1 line, which is not even a paragraph. The next paragraph is out of 10 lines. Please, your body paragraphs must be of the same length. Also, do not write beyond the lines. Do not write beyond the lines. Write only on the lines provided. The lines provided are enough for you. Do not write beyond the lines. The conclusion of your essay, since it's a conclusion, please take note that a conclusion is not a new idea. A conclusion is a summary of what you have written in your body paragraphs. A conclusion is a summary of what you have written in your body paragraphs. So, your conclusion, just like the introduction, is 3 to 4 lines. 3 to 4 lines. Please underline when you are done writing your essay. Do not forget to count your words, because you cannot go beyond the word limit. If the instruction says that write an essay of 200 words and you go beyond and write 250 words, we will only mark the first 200 words. So please do not go beyond the word limit. It is very important. In Unit 4, this is what you should look at. Like I said earlier, you should study the different types of essays. For example, we have a narrative essay, which I was talking about earlier. We have a descriptive essay. We have an argumentative essay. They are all in your study guide. So for Unit 4, you are going to be asked to discuss and describe how to write a descriptive essay the way you would teach your grade 7 learners. You are not going to write an essay. You are going to describe, you are going to explain to your grade 7 learners how to write a descriptive essay. You should be able to explain the steps from the beginning up to the end. It is very important that when you teach a descriptive essay or when you write any specific essay, even for yourself, you should plan first before you start writing, so that the planning helps you on what you are going to write about. Number 3 of Unit 4, we have you should know how to write a friendly letter. Sorry, that word is supposed to be informal, not formal. But anyways, you should know the difference between a formal letter and informal letter. One of the questions is going to ask you how to write a friendly letter. Now, how do we write a friendly letter? Your friendly letter, most especially at the beginning, that's where most trouble comes from. A friendly letter is one that you write to your friends or to anybody that is close to you, to your grandmother or to your grandfather or your sibling, brother or sister. Now, a friendly letter only has one address, not the same as the formal letter, which has 2 addresses. How do you write your address? Please, when you write your address, you can either start with your name. You can write your name Justina Namupala, and which is always on your right side at the at the top. You write your name and then the P.O. box. The P.O. box, we do not punctuate the P.O. box. We do not put a dot after P and then O and then a dot. No, that is very wrong. Please do not do it. After you write a P.O. box, like for example, I wrote mine there, P.O. box 20530, then you write the place where your P.O. box is. For example, if it's in Windhoek, now the place you write there is not where you stay. Please take note that the place you write after the P.O. box is not where you are staying. Let's say you are staying in Vanaheda. Let's say you are staying in Vanaheda. Please do not write there Vanaheda because you are staying in Vanaheda. Write where your P.O. box is, where you go get the papers from the post office. That's where you write. And then after that, you write the date. After the postal address is the salutation, which is dear, and then you put the person's name. After dear, there are no colons. Do not put semicolons after dear. You do not punctuate it. Just write dear Jane or dear Maria or whoever you are writing to. And then the rest of the steps are in the study guide. Number 4, under Unit 4, you should also be able to discuss and explain. Do not only study how to write an informal letter, but you should know how to explain to your learners in the classroom that this is how we write a formal or an informal letter. You should explain to them step by step from the start up to the end. You will also be asked to write a lesson plan in which you teach creative writing to grade 7 learners, specifically a friendly letter. Under Unit 5, you should look at the characteristics of a successful advertisement. Under Unit 5, study the characteristics of a successful advertisement. Unit 6. You should familiarize yourself with the marking grid for marking longer and shorter pieces. What do I mean by this? As a teacher, you are going to be marking the work of the learners, isn't it? It is very important that you familiarize yourself with the marking grid for marking longer and shorter pieces. By this we mean the letters, the essays, the summary writings, all the pieces that we write in English. You should be able to name and explain the correction codes. What are the correction codes? Which ones are the correction codes? The correction codes are the ones we use to indicate errors. For example, if you are marking a learner's essay and that learner did not punctuate the sentence, you use a P to indicate that this sentence is not punctuated. If you are marking a letter, for example, and the word is written, let's say that the spelling of the word is not spelled correctly, you use SP to indicate that this is a spelling error. Please familiarize yourself with the correction codes, the signs that indicate the errors of punctuation, tense, spelling, word order, or wrong words used by the learners. Now, this is what you should be able to know from all the units in this study guide. Now, we move on to the next section, which is a lesson plan. I've noticed from your assignments that many of you do not know how to write a lesson plan. I'm going to touch a bit on how to write a lesson plan, but I advise that if you do not understand, please contact me so that I can explain more further. Now, what is a lesson plan? A lesson plan is the overall plan for the lesson. Before you teach a certain lesson, you plan for it. It is done before a lesson because it is for the lesson before. It's not done after the lesson. Then obviously it's not called planning. So before you teach a lesson, you should plan. There are certain sections of a lesson plan. Some of them are very easy, but we are going to start off with the first one, which is always the date. This one is straightforward, and then you should write the grade. The date, you write the date of which you are delivering the lesson, and the grade to which grade you are teaching, for example, grade 6 or grade 7. The subject is English second language because that is the subject you are going to be teaching. Now on the lesson plan it says that you should include a theme. Where do we get the theme from? Students, I hope you have equipped yourself with the English syllabus. The theme comes from the syllabus. It is very important that you have your syllabus with you now as we speak. Do not wait for the exams, or do not wait for you to go teach for you to have the syllabus. You are supposed to have the syllabus now. Now the theme is in the syllabus. It is under cross-curricular issues. For example, we have themes of HIV and AIDS, we have ICT, we have population, education, etc. They all appear. All the themes appear in the syllabus. Now, how are you going to determine the theme of your subject that day? It depends on what you are doing into the classroom. Let's say that your learners are reading a passage on the dangers of HIV and AIDS. Your theme is going to be HIV and AIDS because the passage is on HIV and AIDS. So that is the theme for your lesson, which should match from the syllabus. Number 5, we have the topic. The topic is what you are going to teach that specific day. For example, if you are teaching synonyms, if you are teaching a formal letter, if you are teaching them how to read, or if you are teaching a listening comprehension, that is the topic. Whatever it is that you are teaching that day is the topic. And then we have syllabus objectives. The objectives come from the syllabus. It is, like I said before, it is very important that you equip yourself with the syllabus. The basic competencies are also from the syllabus. So when you teach your learners, the competencies will determine what your learners are supposed to know during that lesson. Just like I said from the beginning that you should also read the exit learning outcomes, it is the same with you, what you're supposed to know from the study guide. It is also the same with the learners, that their basic competencies is what the learners are supposed to know when you teach them in that lesson. And please ensure that all competencies are met by all the learners. And then we have the teaching media or aids. What does this mean? This means that any material that you are using in your lesson, any certain material that you are using that is helping you to deliver your lesson successfully, is what you write down here. For example, if your learners are going to read a text, if they are reading a poem, you write down the name of the poem. If the learners are going to watch a video, you specify that they are watching a video of maybe Independence Day. Or if your learners are going to use pictures in the classroom, you specify that pictures of trees, for example. Any material or any book that your learners are going to be using, or that you are going to use in order to deliver your lesson. That is what we mean by the teaching media or the teaching aid. And then we have the lesson presentation. What is the lesson presentation? The lesson presentation is the overall lesson. Here you specify what the learners are going to be doing. Are they going to teach each other? Are they going to get information from one another? Are they going to do group work? Are they going to listen to audios? Are they going to listen to the videos? Are they going to read? This is where you specify all these activities. Number 10, we have the presentation of the subject matter. What do we do under the presentation of the subject matter? Here, you must specify, you must include learner and teacher activities. It also includes the teaching competency, the teaching of the competency. Like I said before, you should have competencies of what you want your learners to learn about in the lesson. So here in the presentation of the subject matter, you should include what the learners will be doing and what you, the teacher, are going to be doing during that lesson. If the learners are going to read, if they are going to listen to one another, you should specify that. And you as a teacher, what are you going to be doing during the lesson? Under number 11, we have monitoring of homework. It says in brackets, revision. Please be aware that monitoring of a homework means that you monitor homework of the previous day. For example, if you gave your learners homework the previous day, this is where you monitor if all the learners have done the work. You can either mark it depending on the depending on the time that you have. This is where you are going to monitor the previous day's homework and give feedback to the learners. Do not go on to the next lesson without giving feedback of the previous day's work. So under monitoring of homework, it is not new homework. It is not the homework that you are giving that day. It is monitoring homework from the previous day. And then we have the introduction. What do you do in the introduction? Here you introduce the topic or the lesson to the learners. You tell them that today we are going to look at how to write a friendly letter, for example. You introduce the learners. You introduce your lesson to the learners. Do not start a lesson and the learners are not aware of what they are going to be taught that day. Under 13, we have the consolidation. What do we mean by the consolidation? A consolidation is an emphasis of the important points of what was taught in the lesson. In other words, a consolidation is a summary of the lesson. The important points, the main important points that your learners are supposed to know. So in the consolidation, you recap, you summarize, you emphasize on the main important points of what you have taught in your lesson. And then we have the assessment or homework or tasks. Now this is the homework for the lesson that you have taught that day. This is the assessment task or the homework to be done by the learners. Either it can be an activity, it can be a classwork, it can be homework. Now here, this is the section where you give homework or you give class activities to the learners in relation to what you have taught that day. Number 15, we have English across the curriculum. This one here is very important because many of you do not know what to write under English across the curriculum. What do you write under this section? You ask yourself, how did you include other subject knowledge into your lesson? How did you include knowledge from other subjects into your English lesson? For example, we have different subjects, isn't it? We have learners have different subjects. They have social studies, they have environmental studies, they have mathematics. So now let's say that day your learners were watching a video of how to keep the environment clean or how to avoid pollution. Now, under this English across the curriculum, you write the environmental studies. Why? Because the ways of how to prevent pollution is knowledge from the environmental studies subject. So what you write under the English across the curriculum is the subject name of which you have incorporated into your English lesson. If your learners were reading a passage on the advantages or disadvantages of computers, under English across the curriculum, you write ICT, Information Communication Technology, because that knowledge is from the computer class. And then under number 16, we have reflection. What do we mean by the reflection? The reflection is done after the lesson is delivered. You ask yourself these questions. Were the objectives met? Were the competencies met? Did my learners understand what I taught them? Did my learners get what I was trying to tell them? Did they understand the lesson? Did you meet your objectives and competencies? Now, when do you do your reflection? This is done when the learners have completed the task or the homework or the test. Their marks will determine if your lesson was successful or if it was not successful. The marks your learners get will determine that you have done a great job or you have not done a great job. So under the reflection, you indicate that my objectives were met, or if they were not met, you specify that my objectives were not met, and you also indicate that you are going to reteach the lesson using a different approach because the first approach did not work. That's why your learners did not manage to get good grades, or that's why your learners did not understand the topic. So under the reflection, you reflect back, you go back and reflect and indicate if you have taught well or not. That is all I had with the lesson plan. Like I said earlier, please, if you do not understand, please contact me. I'll be able to help you further. Now, students, this is what you should do in the exam room. Please read the instructions and questions carefully. Do not answer a question if you do not understand fully. Read the question over and over to make yourself understand. As a teacher, always use practical examples when necessary to strengthen your answers. Provide sufficient answers, meaning that don't write too little or too much. Also, please check the marks allocated to determine the length of your answer. The marks allocated per question is very important. In conclusion, dear students, please don't try to memorize everything in the study guide. Like I said before, read the instructions carefully. Your answers must be complete, meaning that you should punctuate your sentences it is an English subject, so grammar rules should apply as such. You should write as neatly as you can. Write full sentences and don't write long sentences. Don't copy as it is from the guide. Use your own example. This will determine that you understand the topics from the study guide. Please understand what is asked of you. Don't write unnecessary facts or ideas. Like I said before, take note of the marks allocated per question. Make sure you understand the question before you attempt to answer it. Call or text the tutor to explain anything that you don't understand from the study guide. Grammar rules should apply as such because it is an English lesson. We cannot want to go teach learners how to punctuate sentences when we do not do so ourselves. Don't leave questions unanswered. Put in more effort. Make sure you understand. Make use of this presentation because the presentation is done to help you prepare for the examination. Good luck and all the best.